You see, I grew up in America. I grew up in the land where phrases like, I have a dream, meant something. I grew up where I believed that freedom existed, that that's what I was fighting for, that our founding fathers made America the land of the free and the land of the brave. This is America, damn it, and I'm taking it back.
And now your host, Terry Joyce.
All right, welcome to the Freedom of Joyce show. I'm Terry Joyce, and I am broadcasting in my father's garage. So, live from my dad's garage. Actually, I've become the stereotype, I think, of what people, when they want to insult this media, they go, what, you're in your basement, in your parents' basement, broadcasting? And I'm like, yeah, I am. But my dad said, a lot of really great things happen in garages. Like very successful people did some very successful things in garages. For example, we have the garage band. That's out there. I mean, a garage band. Let me see. I don't know. I'm with my co-host, Lori Buckley. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm with your dad. I think garages are definitely.
Well, it's kind of fun being in the garage. Here's a little history about this particular garage. It's almost like all the really defunct family members live in it. It's like my Uncle Rudy lived here, and he actually ended up burning down the garage at one point. Actually, I mean, this is going to be a bizarre story, but he burnt down my dad's house, and then they had the house rebuilt, and then it came back and set the garage on fire again. And then now he's in prison. So, I mean,
I was hoping it was like a cigarette or.
No.
He was torching, making art, maybe.
Well, actually,
crazy.
It would be great if he was making art, but he actually did it on purpose. Yeah.
Oh.
Everybody has that crazy uncle, right? I don't know. Maybe
they do.
Maybe some people don't. That's Jeff Waters here. Jeff, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm enjoying listening to your garage stories there.
Well, I mean, the garage is kind of famous. I mean, hopefully I can change the karma. I'm going to change the karma of the garage. Something.
There's been several.
What?
There's been several bloggers and reporters that have done really well in their garage and basements and doing radio shows. So, hats off to you. You're going to get there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm not worried about it. I actually kind of like it. I like it here. I'm gonna paint it and fix it up, and I gotta get some sage. But I'm burning some incense right now, so it's not so bad. And no, am I correct about this? I mean, maybe not. I mean, I watched the movie. What do you call it? It's called The Pirates of Silicon Valley. It was a made-for-TV movie about Steve Jobs. I don't know if anybody saw that. And then. The whole story of the computer with our evil friend Bill Gates. Anyway, did Steve Jobs, did they create the computer in the garage? Was that created in the garage?
I think it's possible, and the beauty of it really was revolutionary radio, that when freedom speaks, it can speak from every place, everywhere. And the point is that here you are, bringing us the latest and the greatest and the most interesting people, and wherever you are, garage, living room, wherever it may be, freedom reigns, and that is the cool thing.
Well, that is the cool thing, and the fact that we have computers and we can just be anywhere. I mean, I've been traveling and done a show and all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't really matter where you're at. You just plug it in and you get started. I just wanted to also we want to give a shout out to Revolution Radio and just say, hey, come on and support us here. We are one of the #1 listener supported radio stations on the internet, and this is how we get to have this freedom and to keep our words out there for you. So right now we've raised $1,073. We have 12 days left, and our goal is $1,980. So, please do take the time to support us. And as you know, I've heard, and as I like to say, we're getting some really big numbers here. Some of our shows are getting 1 million listeners, and if 1 million people gave $1, we'd have $1 million. So it doesn't have to be a whole lot of money. Just whatever you can, contribute with love, and we thank you for your gift. So wanted to say that. And I saw a little bit earlier, I think Nighthawk was talking about his spaghetti sauce, and when I was looking at that, owns the station, and I just was like, that spaghetti sauce sounds so good. And so I don't know, it just kind of struck me. It's still kind of early for me, but if I had my choice, if I could instantly create or taste that spaghetti sauce afterwards, I would love to. Too bad there's not such thing as the the Star Trek, the time travel, the portal machine. You know what I mean, where you could just go, hey, hi.
And eat your spaghetti again.
What?
And eat your spaghetti again.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, you can time travel and eat it again. Wait, I really like that meal. Let me travel back and do it again. Oh, great. We could just travel back to all the good moments. That would be kind of cool.
Why not?
Oh, okay. So there's a few things happening in the news, right? Well, it's not the news, I know, but I saw this posted on Facebook, and it just kind of I just want to read it for a moment, just for a little bit of fun. There's a new male birth control coming out, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know, Lori, do you trust men to actually be responsible enough to take birth control?
Well, not without the threat of child support. I think that should be their key. Why put yourself subjected to the birthing of a child that you only did in a moment of passion? So to keep that from happening, get no sperm. It's going to make your life right. Play without paying. Something like that. Because I said, yeah.
I can say as a man, I don't think very many of them would get that injection at all.
Right.
I don't think it doesn't sound too appealing to me.
No, it sounds really horrible. I mean, and so you saw it. So I mean, you saw it on Facebook because I posted. It's been running around. It's like here it is. It says although there are a panoply of options available for female contraception. Hey, their pill, Hiya, IUD. What's up, female condom that looks like a rainbow-colored inner tubes you used to crawl through during third grade gym class? Researchers, yeah, that's a lovely visual. Researchers have been trying to develop a form of male birth control for years to no avail. It seems, however, that the future of male birth control has arrived in the form of a vasogel, an injectable drug that blocks sperm from traveling to the Mr. Happy. In layman's terms, it's a gel that you inject into your bathing suit parts. I love that. That's so confusing. What part of the bathing suit are we talking about? So you shoot blanks instead of full rounds. Basically, here's how it works. The gel is injected into the vas deferens, the tube that delivers sperm from the testes to Mr. Happy. Vasogel would essentially block sperm from traveling to the area, to the bathing suit part. In essence, the drug serves the same function as a traditional vasectomy, except without the pesky snip involved. Much like a vasectomy, the procedure will also likely be reversible. I mean, what how they say likely? They don't say it is reversible. It's just like, well, it may be reversible. Currently, researchers are conducting tests on baboons to determine I love this. The poor baboons are being, they probably don't even know what's happening to them. Talk about animal cruelty.
Except they're touching their bathing suit parts.
Right. They're touching the baboon's bathing suit parts to determine vagocel's efficacy. So far, it looks pretty good. According to the Daily Mail, a male baboon injected with vasogel and placed in an enclosed area with a group of female baboons. Now, I notice how the baboon gets a group of female baboons. It's just like not just one female, but a group of female baboons. has failed to impregnate any of them after 6 months. Now, that must have been fun for the baboon after he got the injection, right?
Sounds like monkey business to me.
That's bad news for the lady baboons. Really? Do you think so? But good news for the human males looking for a birth control option beyond wearing condoms and trying to pick up women at bars while wearing Google Glass. But I don't understand what that is. Do you? Google Glass? What is that?
I've never heard of it.
No idea, but I'll tell you this. The best method of birth control I found is get married for a while. Stay married for a little while. You'll be all right.
Right. Really? So you're saying you get married, you don't have sex anymore? Is that what happens? Yes, that is what you're saying. Oh, that's so sad.
You said it, I didn't.
Don't get married.
It's not like anybody ponders, the moment to make a commitment when all they just want to do is have pleasure. And, for years when we talked about, men, being able to cut off their sperm through surgery, and then they figured they could, start it again. It worked for some people, but it took a long time. The seed has been such a big issue, but of course the women who have to deal with reproduction are left with all of the downside all the way around. So it's kind of it's like attempting to raise the baboonal intelligence and to put a marker on what's really happening, sort of a sly way to teach a little sexual education. And so it's a step forward because, as we all know, it's the male dog that impregnates dozens of female dogs and makes more puppies. So as we're looking at overpopulation, as we're looking at want to pleasure yourself without the deep commitment, this may start a little rough, but it may be an intelligent alternative for someone who likes to hang in bars and enjoy the buffet of ladies and not worry about putting on a condom and not worry about impregnating and having to go through child support and all those kind of things. It may have a way to level the playing field. I kind of like it. Of course, I'm not a dude, but...
If you're going to be a man whore, get the shot, right?
Yes. Well, who isn't,
So, and then it says Vasagel is being funded by the medical research organization, the Persimmon Foundation, which has been trying to develop a non-hormonal male contraceptive for years. The group has been instrumental in the development of similar male contraceptive gel that is also injected into the vas deferens. While news of Vasagel's development bodes well for men, as well as the future of contraception as a whole, a few lingering questions remain. How effective is it? How long does it last? Will dudes actually consent to having a cold gel injected into their junk the same way women have been consenting invasive procedures like contraceptive implantation for years? I think there's a difference between the IUD and the pain of having a cold gel injected into your junk. I don't know if you can compare that. And we'll find out soon enough. The Persimmon Foundation is currently launching clinical trials. Sign up here if you're interested, but they're hoping to get the drug on the market by 2016 or 2017. So I hope that those clinical trials are paying a lot, because that is a lot to go through, don't you think?
I think so. I need money, but not that bad.
But you look at all the men who had to have bull injections to keep an erection, they've had implants to try to create the sexual pleasure, desire. There is some pain there. Because I actually met a gentleman who had a transplant. He goes, Lori, because my ego was so big, he said, I went for the larger implant. And he said, I had to wait 3 months to test it out. And he goes, and the time came. He said, and so I went into ejaculation, and it was so wonderful. But then the enlarger would not go down. So he didn't know what to do. So he thought, well, I'll go to a pharmacist. Maybe they'll be able to help me. So he goes down to the neighborhood pharmacy. And he walks over to a dude. He goes, are you like the pharmacist? He goes, no. He says, you see those 3 ladies over there? The one with the coat on, that's the pharmacist. So he strolls up on the lady. He says, may I speak with you? He brings her over. He explains to me he has a gigundo erection, and he cannot get it to decrease. And she goes, wait 1 minute here. She goes over to the other two ladies, and, of course, they're kind of laughing, And she comes back, and she says, look, there's nothing we can do for you. She said, but would you like a job? It really happened.
Oh, my God. That's funny.
So it really, really happened to this guy, and it was so sweet. It just was such a cute story. But, so men go through these things, and women, but of course, have the birth and all of the chemicals for themselves, which they have to endure, and the IUDs, which work for some and don't for others, birth control works for some and not for others. So we've all been involved in the grand experiment of what can we do to have pleasure, but not have the responsibility of a birth. And that's really the issue. So there may be some common ground. It might be a little frightening at first, but the conversation is on, and the baboons are ready. So things are happening.
Great. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is also the, there's an agenda of population control as well. And, there's a lot of talk about how even the foods that we're eating are making people sterile. And they talk about how it's being done on purpose as well. So I say just eat some GMO stuff and don't even worry about getting the shot.
Yeah. Your brain could go fuzzy. There's problems.
Yeah.
There's
You
problems.
might have some other elements, but, you're definitely not going to be reproducing anytime soon. Just breathe some air and you'll be sterile, So the show today that we have planned is my guest is Jeff Waters, and he is a COPD patient that has been treating his ailment with cannabis and also some other alternative ways of taking care of himself. And we had you on the show earlier in the year. And you're back to give us an update, and also you're from Oklahoma, correct?
Oh yeah, I'm in Oklahoma. I'm in the great red state of Oklahoma.
And there's been since we did the last show, there's been some stuff going on with Oklahoma about Oklahoma attempting to actually legalize medical marijuana and marijuana for recreation use. Can you right now? I mean, I'm curious about I'm always curious about what's going on from state to state, and how all of this is unfolding in the United States. Can you give us an update on what is going on with Oklahoma in terms of marijuana?
Yeah, definitely. Right now, we have a recreational petition going to try to get it on the ballot this year for recreational marijuana, just like they have in Colorado. We previously had a medical-only marijuana petition, which was all grassroots and volunteers, and we fell short on the signatures for that, and there's various reasons for it. It's interesting to note that in Oklahoma, the threshold on the amount of signatures you need to get on a petition to get it on the ballot is much higher than other places, and so that makes it difficult. Also, the stick standards they have on how you gather signatures, how the petition, how they sign, all that good stuff. So we failed on the medical marijuana, getting it on the ballot this year, but we raised a lot of awareness. I did a personal interview with my local CBS affiliate here, and it got aired on the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news here locally, so that helped raise some awareness. And like I said, the recreational petition is out there, ordered as the medical petition did, but it's out there. They're trying to get the signatures, so I hope they get it because it would actually help me also.
Yeah, I do hope that they do get it. The problem with some of these things, especially when you don't put any, see, this is what gets me about there's no money to put behind these petitions. Come on now. I mean, like marijuana is the number one. It's the number one, cash crop in the United States, and you got to tell me that there's no money to put behind so that they can pay for signature gatherers and things like this. I mean, that's my problem with this.
Well, here's my problem, and here's what my suggestion to the group that actually did the medical that I got pretty involved with and back was the group's called Oklahomans for Health, and some of my suggestions to them is right now, while you're in the down period, because they're going to get the petition going again next year in the fall. But while you're in the down period, hey, let's find some corporate backers or sponsors. And they kind of laughed at me on that, but I think it's possible that you could find some corporate backers that would financially back you some or donate, and maybe even possibly, lend their name or their services. Maybe find a local copy center who has, can do copies of your petitions or whatever. But, that's just one of the things that, and also, we have a lot of celebrities from Oklahoma. Why not get some celebrities involved,
Well, I know a reason for that. Do you want to know my theory on that one?
Yeah, what is it?
Well, here's the thing. Marijuana is, the pharmaceutical companies are, own, or they don't own the networks, but they have people from their board of directors that serve on the board of directors of all of the major networks.
Right.
We're talking NBC, ABC, CBS, Viacom. I mean, if you go, turn your TV on, obviously, what do we see? We see a pharmaceutical commercial constantly. And I know that all of us here on the call right now, I mean, we've been alive for a while, so I don't know about you, but I don't remember growing up and seeing so many drug companies being advertised, ask your doctor this, blah, 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 blah. So, the pharmaceutical companies do not have been basically, they've been opposed in what cannabis could do, because it's profit over people. And I know from being in the entertainment business that there are certain performers that, even though they are huge supporter of the cause and what and legalization on all levels, they are smokers themselves, but they are afraid to come out of the closet on this because it's going to affect their income. So if you're a really big celebrity, again, we're talking about advertisers and people endorsing you and sponsors and all that kind of stuff. If you're doing a commercial for one of these companies, or you're working with Disney, which also I'm sure some of our listeners suspect or know about what Disney's all about, they do not want to be associated with marijuana on any level. As a matter of fact, my friend Dejay, who is she's the president of the Patient Advocacy Network, which is a 501c3 nonprofit here in Southern California that I also serve on the board of directors for, which protects patients' rights. She wanted to do a Pot Fairy character, for events or whatever, and have this costume made for her, and there was a costume maker that worked for Disney on her own time, wanted to make this costume, and Disney got wind of it and said that she couldn't make that costume, even though she just simply worked for Disney. So that's the kind of lockdown that's happening surrounding this plan. If you look back, to when it became illegal, who made it illegal? The elite made it illegal. It was the Rockefellers and DuPont and J.P. Morgan, and because we're looking at something that provides paper, fiber, fuel, energy. We don't have to. There's big money in oil. There's big corruption in oil. We have wars being fought over oil, and yet we have toxic waste being dumped into our oceans from fracking, and yet we're destroying the planet, and yet there's everything that we can to make cannabis illegal. And my feeling about not having any money behind petitions is because there's still, and I'm gonna call the kettle black on our own community. There's still so much greed around marijuana, and let's talk about the elite have their hands in that as well, and so do other people, and they don't want to give up their non-taxed drug money, and I know I don't mean to call it drug money, but marijuana money away. They don't want to lose their own individual cash cow to be able to think about the greater good of humanity. And that's the frustrating part about about that community, in which I also am in. Now I'm going to get my soapbox. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's there's many players in this pie, and one of the biggest things also is the education and the re-education of over a 60-year campaign that's saying this was a dangerous drug, which was all lies, promoted by our government, who didn't even acknowledge their own testing, which they all proved to be not that truth. And so they've had to, we don't hear the government saying, okay, we lied, we made a mistake, we incarcerated millions of people, ruined lives, murdered people over something that was absolutely not true. And so we're having to look at a government that can't even cop to what it did. And so it still stays on the high rating scale of narcotics, which is ridiculous. And but these are the things that, of course, that Jeff, you got to deal with, is the re-education of a kind of a known as a Christian redneck state, and to show them that this was never true about what happened, and that their government lied. And as a result, not only the beauty of the fact that the plant heals, and that it is the cash cow on many levels, and a new industry for Oklahoma, which, you have to be able, it's not easy for people to say, what, our government lied? Yes, they did. And that they ruined lives. They're lucky that they made laws that says you can't sue the government, but the very fact that it violated millions of people on a lie is a critical thing. So I know it must be hard, but yet part of the process of which you have to do in order to change what was status quo into the truth, and allow people to realize, because those that know it and have friends that smoke it, they all know these guys and gals aren't serial killers. They're not robbers. They're people simply looking to get high without the pain of alcohol indulgence and pharmaceutical influence. So you're in that re-education stage, and the fact that they make your signature so high, that's part of the old school defending themselves from what will be known one day as a horrible fraud against the American public by their own country. And so I know that is part of the challenge that you face, but it's ITT. It takes time for people to understand it, but also the beauty of the hemp growing, for clothing, for fuels, for all the amazing things that come with it, that it's like the 100th monkey theory, where you got the 3 islands, and everybody ate sandy bananas when the ape dropped a banana in the sand, and then one day it fell in the ocean, and by the 100th monkey on one island, all 3 islands began washing their banana. So we're going to see some banana-ing. Monkeys are very popular today, going on, and that is part of the challenge that you meet, is to re-educate those who have been taught by fear and lies, and to set them straight and recognize this is a new time, a new day, and a new way in which will satisfy people, bring tremendous income to the state, because how many times can you reinvent something at a time that can be so readily accepted and provided? And the great healing powers which you're teaching people about is so true, because a plant responds to the body's needs and the sustenance it needs to heal itself, which is one of the greatest things that anybody can do.
All right, we're going to be right back with more Freedom of Joyce, and also to get an update on Jeff Water. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Freedom of Joyce show on Revolution Radio. I just got a message from Herbal Fuzzy, who I think that's Mona. Growing mint will help if no sage. Freedom of Joyce. Oh, and marjoram and basil helps, but patchouli was my favorite. Oh, I need to grow some of these types of plants and have them around the house. So I'm with Jeff Waters and Lori Buckley, my co-host today, and forever. Lori, you're in Vegas right now. Woohoo!
Oh, it's beautiful. It was my hometown for 40 years, and the whole world comes here. When my family moved to California, I was like, oh, my family moved. But actually, the world came here, people that knew my family, and I have my most treasured friends of my life are here with me, and I'm feeling so blessed. I saw the great show Love last night at the Mirage, the story of the Beatles, and I'd seen it before, but every time you go, it's like a beautiful renewal. And I wanted to say, too, that the beauty of this station is that we are re-examining the power of people, their power of choice, the ability to change their lives, and not only are our listeners listening, but that you also, Terry and Jeff, you're encouraging people to understand the power of their beauty, and that we are never in our history have we been more important than we are today to be able to implement change, to fund the things we believe in, and that we want not only to marijuana and hemp to be reintroduced for the truth of it, but also the fact that we should have the power to grow it ourselves, that it should never belong to a corporation. It should stay with the people, because that is the truth of the beauty of the plant. And so there's so many beautiful issues here, and I just want to say what an honor it is to be rebellious, to be outspoken, to contribute to a change, to free the people, to understand the truth of it. And the fact that we're healing lives and mellowing people out and giving alcohol a challenge, because it must also be put in its place. And it's just a wonderful thing to be able to share this information now with our listeners and this wonderful exchange that we're having. And I'm just chirping like a bird.
Well, Jeff, and I want to get that's an interesting subject matter between alcohol versus marijuana. I know a lot of people sometimes it helps them to detox from a lot of different drugs. I posted, I've done a few interviews on that, and it's kind of a controversial subject matter for some people. There's like, no way, how could marijuana help you, not use other drugs? But it can, because it's less toxic and damaging. It's methadone for the other drugs in many ways. It does stop people from drinking. I know that I used to be a little bit more of a drinker, being that Lori, our lifestyle, being in comedy clubs and things like that. It's an alcohol business. And when I started to smoke more marijuana, I became more healthier and lost weight and realized. I mean, a lot of times, like I wanted to have a drink because I have anxiety and I like to take the edge off, and so I was kind of self-medicating in some ways. And it's, come on, if you look back to the glory days, when you would do a show and everybody would do a shot of tequila and. The road has that whole kind of, lifestyle, but replacing it, I know in my own personal life, I'm much more functional now than in the past. I'm not as stupid either. So, anyway, Jeff Waters, let's let our listeners know a little bit about what happened to you. And how you started to get well.
Before I jump into that story, I wanted to go back a little bit to what we were talking about that's going on in Oklahoma, because part of the problem here, and I'd be amiss if I didn't say this, especially for my Oklahoma listeners out there, the problem we're having is Mary Fallin, our governor at the time. She's totally been against the legalization, even for medical purposes here, up until she saw the support behind the medical petition that was going on. Then she flip-flopped on her stance, kind of, and said that she supports the limited research. I'm trying to make sure I worded exactly as she did. Limited research for CBD-only oil that has no psychiatric side effects. Limited research. That is what she's supporting on CBD only. So that's the problem we're having here as our governor. She doesn't stand for anything. She's against equal rights for gay families and couples. She's against marijuana legalization, even for medical purposes, even for children who need it. She doesn't stand for anything. She's a corporate-owned, pharmacy-owned governor of Oklahoma, and until we get her gone, unless we can get it on the ballot ourselves by signatures, we're going to be having a hard time here in Oklahoma. But I just wanted to let everybody know, because I've been asked about that. I was asked about that on my interview, Channel 6 here locally, and they edited that part out. So I want everybody to know that's my feeling, and hopefully, Mary Fallin, I know you're probably not listening to this, but hopefully one of your little trolls will get this tape to you and you'll listen to it. one thing that I hope that she considers is the cost that it's costing us annually to house prisoners. It costs us in Oklahoma, according to the Oklahoma Department of Corrections, $18,467 a year to house prisoners. Now, I don't know, I couldn't find the exact figures on how many are incarcerated for marijuana offenses and nonviolent marijuana offenses, but I'm sure it's a good portion of that. And, that would save us a lot of money right there. If we did something to decriminalize marijuana, that would be a big impact on the state from that standpoint alone. And CBD only is not the way to go. We need the whole plant. That's just like you're playing pharmacist and taking a chemical out of one thing and trying to derive and make your own medicine, when the whole sum of the plant is actually what does the healing, not just one part of it. So I just wanted to address that and let everybody know that that's what my thoughts and feelings are on that. And hopefully the state of Oklahoma will stand up to Mary Fallin and get this on the ballot sometime soon.
I find it interesting that you mentioned that they edited that part out of your interview, and it will not be edited out of this radio broadcast. Trust me.
Right, I know that.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that we get it up on YouTube and social network it and let people know. Yeah, there is the whole. I mean, it seems like a lot of our government is leaning toward the CBD. Strain, making it more CBD oriented rather than having the THC in the plant, and that's good for some things. I mean, there's certain ways of making that happen, but also once you start doing those things, doesn't that allow you to patent it, which is exactly what will put it into the hands of the pharmaceutical companies. Right. I feel that there is maybe even more of an agenda because right now we are in that big shift of here's this plant that was made illegal all this time, but shows like this and other shows that are out there on the internet, the Time for Hemp Network. I want to give a shout out to Casper Leach and the Time for Hemp Network because I do re-air and air on the Time for Hemp Network, so. And getting a message out, and also people becoming aware. I mean, how many times do we go on Facebook, do we see somebody, every day there's new information about what this plant does, and the dialogue is amazing. So some of society isn't stupid about it. And I don't know, stupid, I hate to say the word stupid, ignorant. Ignorant's probably a better word. Some people are remaining brainwashed. And it's a demon drug, and it's this and that, and they, if I mention, hey, I know some friends that their cancer is in remission from it, they're still alive today, wouldn't you take something that you knew could cure or, help you stay alive if you had no other choice? And they still look at me with this blank stare, like as if anything that I'm saying has absolutely no credibility. And
those same people that do that are the same ones that have a handful of pain pills in their hand at night, and it's okay for them to pop those pain pills that have worse side effects than. And as far as I know, the marijuana, the only side effects you're going to get off that, you may be sleepy, you may get some energy depending on the strain, you may get a little anxiety, paranoid if you do a little too much the first time. But once you build your tolerance up, all the side effects start to diminish and go away, and you just feel healthy and great. But that's the thing about it. The people that look at you that way are so brainwashed. I have some of them in my own family that are they're pharmaceutical, and their doctors tell no lies. I mean, they can do no wrong, and it's not all doctors. Not all doctors in pharmaceutical are bad, but a lot of them haven't been trained or taught properly. Well, as far as the doctors lies, the pharmaceuticals, I believe there probably is some people out there in the industry that are actually trying to work for cures and do things. But unfortunately, when you're working for big pharmacy, that's not ever going to happen with big pharmacy, because that's not what they're in it for. They're in it for the money, the recurring business. If you cure somebody, if you develop a pill and they're cured of the disease that they had before, there goes all your money out of your pockets.
Well, let's also look at the fact that we've taken the last 60 years of lies with hundreds and hundreds of years of used as medicinal purposes throughout history. And we're invalidating all the people who use it, the millions of people all over the planet that use marijuana for personal use, for healing their bodies, for such a multitude of things. And they've attempted to invalidate what is known throughout history as an herbal treatment and something that rendered no harm to anyone. And then, if you want to expand the big lie, is you've got pharmaceutical people attempting to recreate a pharmaceutical product to replace the natural thing, which, because just like Monsanto, everybody wants to be Mother Nature, so you can addict the entire world on your product and reap the benefits of something that people could actually grow in their own backyard and cultivate themselves and heal themselves and make something happen. And so this is, again, unwinding that big lie. And I love, Jeff, what you said about your governor. We're fighting governors all over this country. We're fighting congressmen who have been profiting from the lie. We are incarcerating so many people, more than anybody, add up everybody in the whole world, and you can't be more incarcerated than we are, because the war on drugs was always the war on people. And then to throw marijuana, the beauty of marijuana, into the high-end drugs, we're now beginning to recognize, because we're competing, the money's competing for social programs, for building communities, fighting a war on drugs that was the biggest lie in the world. If anybody had crazy drugs, then we should have been helping them, not incarcerating them and profiting off the misery of others. So we have this great time now where the arena is opening up to expand our consciousness so we can deprogram from the lies we've heard and interject what we know is the natural beauty of this product. And all the people afraid to stand out, they're going to ruin their careers. You've got a politician like many, many others who want to stand up for something that will no longer hold any truth to what they've done. They'll justify the horrors that they put on people's lives, made people hate police for having to enforce lies that were true. Because, how many cops smoke pot? I bet a ton. Because they know it was always a lie in the first place. So, it takes this courage, the awakening from the big sleep of lies, to understand we've been taken, and we're not going to take it anymore, and we're all, in our beauty and kindness, going to stand up with the truth, vote these people out of office, stop these restraints, which did nothing but block the flow of love and understanding. And the revolution is here, and it's not a brutal revolution, it's an awakening of the truth that must be known and can't be said enough. So what we have to hope, Jeff, is that the beautiful words that you're saying and the recognition of the cogs in the wheel that are preventing Oklahomans from flow is changing and will change until the enlightenment time is known by everybody.
Yeah, I want to get back to Jeff Waters for just a moment. So you have been healing yourself with the use of cannabis for your COPD, and some people might not know what COPD is. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, definitely. Hang on a second. I got the puppies here. Let me deal with them real quick.
What kind? Oh, well, I guess he left for a minute. So you know what? Later on. Sorry. Oh, that's all right. No problem. So.
So COPD stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and it's the fourth leading cause of death, according to the Center for Disease Control on the most recent stats I could find, which I think were from 2012, so it's probably jumped a little bit since then. But COPD is actually a blanket term used to describe chronic lung diseases that causes limitation in airflow in your lungs. The more familiar terms have been chronic bronchitis, emphysema, and those terms are still used occasionally, but not as much. Now, if you have one of those diseases, you're just diagnosed with COPD. Mine started out with chronic bronchitis, and then started to progress into emphysema, if you want to look at it that way, actually. The World Health Organization actually predicts that COPD will be the third leading cause of death by 2030. And the problem that we have with COPD, much like cancer, is it's a money-driven disease. The doctors and everybody want to claim that there's no cure, and the only thing we can do is try to treat you and prevent the disease from becoming even more rapid or before you go downhill any quicker type of thing. And they just throw drugs at you, load drugs at you. And in my case,
do to you, Jeff? I mean, like when the drugs that they gave you, were they effective for you, or did you have side effects?
Oh man, I was on so many medications. I'll just name a few, just so everybody knows and can kind of link it. One of the most common medications is for asthma or COPD is a rescue inhaler. It's an inhaler that you basically carry with you at all times. It's usually mine. I use different types. My brand I used at that time was Pro Air. It's a nebulizer. It's not a nebulizer. I'm sorry. It's an albuterol based inhaler that's supposed to be a quick acting bronchulator. So if you're having an attack where you can't breathe, you use that. That's one of them. They also had me on Spiritus and before I did a nebulizer, carried the oxygen, put it around my house, all that good stuff. Now, during the time that I was taking it, I was getting worse. I wasn't getting better. As far as the side effects, I didn't really see them and notice them as much then as I do now that I'm off all of them. But I gained a lot of weight. My eyesight is horrible now. There are tons of different things. My teeth, I've got some bad teeth, which I think all of these things correlate with my medicines that I've been taking for all these years. And thank God I'm off every one of them now and only use cannabis oil, vitamins, fruits, vegetables, and healthy eating and exercise, and I don't have to put that poison in my body anymore. And for those out there listening with COPD, it's not just me. There are others that are having success with cannabis oil or even vaping cannabis. And when I came on your show the first time, I was kind of against the vaping, and I've kind of changed my viewpoint on that now because I'm seeing that it actually helps COPD and lung patients a lot. So I would actually encourage cannabis oil, vaping, eating the raw flowers, juicing the raw flowers, getting as much of the plant in your body as you can.
Oh, that's really great. Your journey and the progression that you've done with it is really amazing. I'm really glad to have you back on the show and get an update on you and to see how everything's going. Now, you've created a support group online, right, on Facebook?
I did on Facebook. It's called Treating COPD with Cannabis, and I've had that started about 3 months ago. I think as of today, we're at 1,200 members or so. So we're growing pretty quickly. It's a mixture of COPD patients, activists, oil makers. I know there's some stoners in the group too. They just step back and watch the post, but it's a great group right now. And if anybody would like to join, like I said, find them on Facebook. We hear stories every day of people who are having success, people who are on oxygen or on medicine, who couldn't do normal daily activities in life anymore, who are now using cannabis, and they're amazed, as I'm amazed, at the progress that we're all making to it. It's been a wonderful experience. It's just been something else. I mean, I'm amazed by it. Not only was on all the COPD medications, I was just unhealthy. I was unhealthy. I used to say back all the time that when people would criticize me for eating my greasy, fat foods from Oklahoma and all that, I'd say, look, I'm going to eat them until I die. You know, it's my food. I love my food. But now, it's a different story. I got off of it, and I see the change and difference in it. But diet is really critical for COPD and lung patients. I mean, if that's the first step, really, actually it's not. The first step is being open to the possibility of other treatments that may help you other than the handful of pills and inhalers that the doctors are giving you. Once you got that in your mind frame and you start researching different things, that's when you're ready. That's when you can really try to start healing, and I think healing occurs from that moment on. When I first started this journey, I didn't know much about cannabis oil. I knew nothing about cannabis oil, actually. Never heard of it. As a teenager, growing up, I I smoked weed, partied, did all that thing. I was a jock. I was friends with everybody because I smoked weed. All the groups in high school that you had, the popular people, the rich people, the nerds, and all those stereotypes that we placed on people, I was able to be friends with them all because I partied and did cannabis. That was something that made me, out there with other people. But I didn't know enough about cannabis, and I always used to think, man, it'd be great if there's some way for medical patients to get the benefits of cannabis without smoking it. And little did I know of cannabis oil that it's been around for years, thousands of years, But healing begins with that moment when you open your mind to something else, and that's what I did. I opened my mind to something else. Just to step back a little bit, throw a little light on it, what got me to this position, I guess coming up on a year and a half ago now, this last end of February, early March of last year, I had an allergic reaction to a blood pressure medicine called Lisprinol that I'd been taking for years, probably 4 years before that. I never had a problem with it. I had very high blood pressure, extremely high for years. So anyway, all of a sudden one day I woke up and I started having some swelling in my nose and my face. I thought it was a sinus infection, honestly. And so I waited a day or so, and it kept getting worse. And then we went to one of the local hospitals. I'm going to name them out right here by name because they suck. That hospital is McAllister Regional Hospital in McAllister, Oklahoma. I got there, sat in the emergency room for, hours or however long it was. Got in there, and I think they gave me some antihistamine and a prescription for some antibiotics and sent me home. Came home, kept getting worse. Next day, I think it was, we went to the next crappy hospital that I'm going to name out, double-T, Muskogee Regional Hospital, Muskogee, Oklahoma. They did the same thing, sent me home. By this time, my face was so swollen up, I looked like I'd been in a 10-round boxing match and lost. And so my wife was worried, needless to say. So she started asking around with local neighbors and people that she knew and what to do. And they said, hey, take him to Tulsa. Tulsa's about a 45-minute drive from here or so. So she took me to, now the shout-out for the best hospital I've ever been affiliated with, St. Francis Hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I got there, and within 24 hours, they had me on life support. I had that allergic reaction. It was so bad they were afraid my throat was going to close out. I had, because of my COPD, I had staph pneumonia.
We got to go. We're going to be right back with more Freedom of Joyce, and also we're going to add Mike Bluehair Smith to give us an update on his live streaming adventures in Ferguson, Missouri. We'll be right back.
Now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to the Freedom of Joyce show in the second hour. How time goes by so fast. And I'm going to take a moment at the top of the hour to just address some things. One is that we are the #1 listener-supported radio station on the Internet, and we do get by your donations. That's how we have freedom of speech and able to get this information out to you that the mainstream media is not covering. Right now, we raised $1,073. Our goal is $1,900, and we have 12 days left. So please do take a moment and give us a donation here at freedomslips.com. And thank you so much for supporting us and donating us. It's because of you that we stay on the air and keep going. And another thing I'd like to mention, too, that's going on, I'm going to do a little bit of plug here. I'm actually I'm planning an event. I'm doing an event with another host here on the network, Stephen D. Kelly, as well as our friend James Robert Wright, who's been doing a lot of shows here on the network as well. We are planning a really fun event called it's a Halloween party, and it's the 2014 Illuminati Halloween Ball. And when I say this, This is anti-Illuminati. We are mocking the elite with music, comedy, food, drink, activism, and fun. And I will be doing stand-up as well as we're going to have some really great music and some food and some drink. And it is a costume ball. So you want to make sure that that you dress up if you're going to attend. It's actually in Hollywood. It's right across the street from the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and it's 6015 Hollywood Boulevard. And what's really cool about this is that we're going to be doing 4 hours of radio broadcasting here live on Revolution Radio during the event, as well as we're going to be live streaming it, so you can come and watch the party visually, and also see our entertainment, which is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to put the Facebook invite here, the event page in the chat if you want to check out. I've now opened the invite to the public, so if you want to come and check it out and go, please do. So just a little bit of a plug on that. And with me is Lori Buckley, who's co-hosting with me. Hi, Lori.
Hello, my darling. It sounds like so much fun. What a great idea.
I can't wait. It is going to be a lot of fun. We're in a studio in Hollywood on Santa Monica Boulevard, and it seats about 100 people. And I want to give a big thank you to Buddy Plant, who is does a marijuana activist and cartoons and things. And we're going to have him on the show really soon. He and Deborah Scotty, who produce various shows, have let their studio be used for this event, and it'll hold about 100 people. And I just got wind that some of the other, I believe Noreen Helpland is going to be there. I think Justin Time's going to be there, and I'm getting a rumor. I don't know for sure, but I think Sean David Morton is wanting to jump on board as well. So it's going to be really fun. It's growing by the numbers. Actually, James Wright and Stephen D. Kelly and I came up with the idea on the Revolution Radio party that we had here last Sunday. And look, we've already got the invite and a flyer, and so it's in full motion in just a few days. So it's super exciting. He is Jeff Waters. Thanks for being here. COPD patient who is a cannabis activist and also wonderful spokesperson, and he's been healing his COPD by using cannabis oil. But I want to bring in with me too right today, and it's actually midnight for him because he's such a night out, because he's always filming he has filmed the police Portland, so he's always out on the ground making sure that these psychotic police officers stay in line. And I wanted to get you were down in Ferguson, Missouri, and I've been wanting to have you on the show for so long to talk about it. So can you let us know, first of all, tell us about that experience for you and what you saw.
Well, sure, Terry. Well, I need to tell people my intention for going down there. I went down there as a cop watcher to basically try to do what I do every weekend here in Portland, Oregon, which is listen to police scanner and monitor police and try to make sure that I'm mitigating violence by putting them on notice, making sure that they know that they're being documented. I got there on the 19th, which was pretty much the last night of the really bad stuff. I have to paint a picture for people so they understand what it looked like. They shut down mass transit within a mile radius of the actual protest zone. I was on West Florissant Avenue, where all the businesses for Ferguson is. So basically, they shut down about 10 blocks of highway. It was a double-lane highway, and they surrounded it by 3 soft checkpoints, meaning you can walk through them, but you have to go through this little very thinly choked area that's surrounded by either riot cops or police vehicles and guys standing around with rifles. And they would scrutinize everyone very carefully as they came in, and they would randomly stop people and search people for weapons. Well, I was lucky enough to be one of the chosen few as I walked through. I think maybe the riot gear I was wearing set them off. in the sense of them. But when I cover large protests, I usually wear riot gear on my arms and legs, and sometimes I'll wear the German police stuff, although I wasn't wearing the full upper body stuff that I wear in Portland because I just couldn't fit it in the overhead compartment. But so they stopped me for weapons at the third checkpoint coming into this 10 block strip of quote unquote free speech zone that I'll tell you about later. And the officer stopped me and voiced a concern about weapons. And something a lot of people don't know is that police do have a right to pat you down for weapons when you're in a casual conversation stage with them, because there's three how do I say this? There's three stages of police encounter. There's their most favorite stage of a police encounter, the one that the police love the most, the one that the sociopaths really enjoy the best, is the consensual encounter. So when they walk up to you and say, "Oh, how you're doing? I'm your buddy. Tell me your side of things." Don't fall for it. They're just there fishing for information to see if they can get a prosecution. But anywho, so I was in a casual conversation stage with this cop. Him and his buddy walk up to me out of their little SUV, and they express concerns about the weapons, as I said before. And I say, I do consent to you patting me down for weapons, but I do not consent to search of my person or my property. It's very important to voice to police that you do not consent to a search. It's something that you can, it's a rule of thumb. You always say that. When, you also say, am I being detained or am I free to go? I asked him if I was being detained at that point, and he said yes, to search for weapons. So the officer, to my shock and dismay, actually, observed my civil rights and only patted me down for weapons, and then, I walked away. So I finally got down into the area where people were allowed to protest at this 10-block little stretch of double-lane highway. And what I witnessed was the most systematic, broadly sweeping denial of civil rights and civil liberties that I've ever seen in my entire life. Okay, first of all, you have a First Amendment right to peaceably assemble to petition your government for redress of grievance. What I saw was a forced march, like something out of communist China or Russia. And what I mean by that is no one was allowed to really spend any time in that stretch of highway. The whole crowd was made to walk along the sidewalk in a circle around that stretch of highway, back and forth all day. When a group of people would stop in a number of larger than 5 or 6 people, they would be surrounded by cops, or either they would form a riot line on one side of it and they would push the people through. If somebody would complain about this, they would be grabbed up and arrested and charged supposedly with failure to disperse, which is a law that's actually applicable to a riotous situation. They're only allowed to arrest people for that if they're actively rioting. I mean, these are people just walking around with signs chanting, Black Lives Matter, or, hands up, don't shoot. These are just people walking. And I saw this over and over and over again, same tactic, like a metronome of tyranny. It was just, it infuriated me. And I saw it from the 19th when I arrived there all the way up until the 22nd. I think I left on the night of the 23rd. So it was just crazy. And the level of militarization that I saw was something out of a bad sci-fi movie. I mean, these guys were in mine-resistant vehicles. The only way that I could describe the equipment they were wearing would be, I don't know. Imagine if someone pulled up a flatbed truck and it was just heaped with all manner of military-type equipment. And then they just dumped off that equipment in the middle of a parking lot and then let these yeehaw, racist, redneck, Peckerwood white boys dig through it and pick out the stuff they think looks the coolest. You would look at them all lined up when they're ready to do one of these creepy, crowd-controlled Orwellian exercises. And the first guy you would look at would have a helmet on, and it'd be holding a stick in his hand. The next guy would have, shin guards and a riot shield. The next guy would be holding a semi-automatic rifle. The guy beside that would just be holding, a less lethal 12-gauge shotgun. It was just, there was no uniformity or consistency in their behavior or really the gear they were carrying. It was just weird. And I've talked to a lot of people that were, active duty. I know people that are active duty military. I also know folks that are formerly with the armed services. And all of them were consistently telling me none of those people were acting in any way that they knew how to use the gear they were carrying. And it was just a very frightening soup of anger and resentment and racism and just way too much militarism. So that's basically the nightmare that I walked into.
Unbelievable. I watched a lot of your videos. I mean, everyone that you posted on Facebook, and I may have missed a couple. I mean, sometimes, but you're posted in the group that I have, which is called the Global Freedom of Light Movement. And if anybody wants to join that on Facebook, please do send me a request. But I really loved your coverage on it. One of the ones that was just absolutely startling for me was the one where the police officer was holding the AK, the automatic rifle weapon, threatening protesters. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. I posted on my timeline, and this guy told me that it was propaganda. And I said, really? I know the live streamer personally. This is real footage. This is not propaganda. This is actually what's really happening in the United States. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that officer's name was Ray Elbies, and he worked for St. Anne Police Department, which is a suburb of St. Louis. And if you type officer, am I allowed to use expletives on your show?
No.
Okay, well, officer, go F yourself,
okay.
But actually spell out the word.
Okay.
You can read all about him. And I'll tell that story briefly. When I arrived there on the 19th, in the daytime, there wasn't very much violence. There was plenty of threats of violence all day by the police. I mean, I watched them. Incidentally, when I interviewed folks, they've been doing that for a week and a half to people. And what I mean by that was pointing rifles at, or aiming rifles at the crowd. I was told that by old women, little kids told me, like teenage boys, 13, 14 years old kids, not gentle giants like Mike Brown, but I mean like, your average looking small kid. Okay. The only reason why this guy got busted for it is because the alternative media showed up. And let me explain why. This protest is the only one I've been at where there was a designated media area and the police would announce over the LRAD, the crowd control weapon, at various times when they want to do a push through a crowd or do some of their little militant BS. The police would announce over the LRAD, media go to the designated media area, and then and that just so happened to be about 4 blocks down the street. And all the mainstream media, like good little drones, would just start marching off into the the crowd behind their little fenced-in free speech cage. The mainstream media bought a parking lot that had a scale-proof fence around it, and they would set up their tripods and stuff on top of the vehicles. But when they're walking away to the designated media area, their backs are turned. So the cops are doing pretty much whatever they wanted. And that's why mainstream media didn't cover any of these guns being aimed at people. Aside from mainstream did do a good job of getting the guys that were on top of the MRAPs, the mine-resistant vehicles with the sniper rifles, pointing them or aiming them through the crowd throughout the day. They did do a good job of that. But I mean, when they were sweeping through, that was commonplace. And I was standing around on the 19th with some alternative media folks that I know, some live streamers from old Occupy days, and some the fellows from Oakland Cop Block, the founder, and the people from the Free Thought Project, and they announced that over the LRAD, and we all looked at each other and just laughed. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, and they started announcing over, after they told the media to leave and the mainstream walked away on the 19th, all these alternative media folks just started fanning out through the crowd and seeing what we could cover. I turned my camera on and just started documenting, like I always do. but I wasn't about to leave. It's just crazy. So Orwellian, so creepy. Anywho, so they started to form a hard line on one side of the street, and they announced that people that are in the middle of the street need to move or they could face arrest. And things started to get, more and more intense. And this cop, Ray Elbies, leveled his semi-automatic rifle, his AR-15, chest height, and he broke ranks. One of the things you're not supposed to do in a crowd control situation, if you're a cop, when they make those lines, it kind of looks like Roman infantry formations. It's called a phalanx. When they make those straight lines and they march through the crowd, you're not supposed to leave your line. And the reason why is that it exposes your back to potential enemies. If you walk amongst the crowd and you walk off your line, the whole line can collapse. It's something that's ingrained into them. Well, this dummy somehow decided it might be a good idea to mix up with a bunch of protesters and media folks with a semi-automatic rifle, and he actually leveled the thing chest high, and he was being filmed by at least, I saw maybe 11 cameras. There was like 2 bigger mainstream media-looking cameras. There was me. There was a bunch of live streamers. The thing is that at least 9 different versions of the video I shot of this guy aiming a rifle at us sprang up within an hour or two of this guy aiming a rifle at people. But he was basically terrified. He had this look of fear on his face that I found frightening, because the last thing I want in the entire universe, in all perception, is the last thing I want is somebody that's afraid, that's pointing a rifle at me. And at 2 different times during his little panic attack or whatever he was having, the thing pointed at me, and that was frightening. So at one point he actually, I'm the only one that got a brief interview with the person that he pointed the rifle at and verbally threatened. He told this one black kid that was walking, he looked like he was about 16 or 17 years old. He had his hands above his head and he was walking past, and he said, "Get back or I will effing kill you," to the kid. And then I aimed the camera at the kid and said, I heard that. I documented it. I heard what he said. That was commonplace. And what I mean by commonplace is the level of potential violence that these police could have leveled, and their fear and contempt. They were really acting very much afraid of the crowd, and we're lucky that wasn't bloodier than it actually was. I'm very surprised that more people weren't hurt by those cops.
Hey, Mike, why were they, was there a reason for them to be afraid of the crowd? Was the crowd doing anything unusual that other protesters haven't done in the past?
Well, honestly, there's a lot of resentment. I've seen people throwing stuff at cops at other protests, whether it be bottles or rocks or whatnot. But I didn't really notice a difference between other things, like a NATO summit or a May Day protest in Seattle or something like that. Not really. However, I didn't hear any of the shots myself, so I can't confirm whether or not it's true or not. And I full on believe that police exaggerate and false flag media reports so they can justify their militarization. It happens all the time, and I've documented it on camera before. But according to the police scanners that I would listen to at night, there were quite a few shots fired calls in that area. But I don't know if that is violence that's just ambient violence because of the chaos that was going on and people shooting at each other, or if people were shooting at the police. But at night, the police would make quite a few calls about shots fired on the police scanner. But I didn't witness or hear anybody shooting at the police. But they did report that they were being shot at. But like I said, that might have been just BS, smoke and mirrors, because like I said, I didn't hear or see any of it. The majority of the violent, scary stuff I saw was coming from the police, and some of the gear they were carrying was just just creepy. Like, at every protest I've ever been to, the police are either carrying those wooden, they call them batons, to lighten to lessen what they actually are. It's a bat or a club. Okay, a little girl twirls a baton. I love the Orwellian language that mainstream media and popular culture, contemporary culture uses to define the tools of oppression. But these particular batons, in quotes, that they were carrying, they had steel caps on the ends, and it was a round steel cap, but at the very top edge there was a little ridge that sets up. What that's designed to do is actually break the skin. So the bats or the batons these guys were carrying had a metal little serration on the ends, that are designed to actually break the skin. And what that does is it's a psychological warfare weapon. If they would have used those en masse or in a line, basically you would have saw a whole lot of people with just blood pouring down their face. And the idea is to terrify the crowd. I mean, something that I've noticed is about the way the police were dealing with the crowd in Ferguson was like as if they were going out of a military counterinsurgency manual. Literally, they were using the clergy and the community leaders of Ferguson as mouthpieces during the protest to manipulate the crowd to do what the police wanted. I mean, you literally had preachers walking around and they would be yelling the same messages that the militantly armed police would be saying over the LRAD at the crowd.
Wow.
So if it was just really creepy. Two of the videos that I uploaded and produced when I was in Ferguson was called, Jesus and the Jackboot, parts 1 and part 2. And if you know much about brainwashing or how people are manipulated, if you combine these religious figures, if you combine the psychological impact of these religious figures, these preachers, and the militantly armed police, this double kind of authority figure, you can imagine how that would work on the crowd's mind. You would get a little bit of a sense of how these people were being manipulated. And it was very, very creepy. So I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, Mike, I really appreciate you. We're actually getting down to the break here in a moment, and I appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you come back and do a full show because there's
sure.
much to talk about the subject matter. But I'm glad that the listeners got to get an overview of what happened and what your perception of what was going on is. Where can our listeners find your YouTube channel and all your information?
Sure, that'd be awesome. The best way to support what I do is watch my videos, share them with friends. That would be awesome. If you live in the Portland area, please do contact me on the website, filmthepolicepdx.com, and I can get a camera in your hand and train you up on your rights, and we can go out and patrol the police together. Also, I have a Facebook group. I would love it if people would join that because it's a great place to share information about reforming the police or abolition. I have friends that are wanting to get rid of the police completely, and I have people that want to, reform them. But check out STP Film the Police Portland on Facebook, and you can also check out my YouTube channel. I've done hundreds and hundreds of cop watching videos. I'm probably So just check out Mike Bluehair on YouTube.
Mike Bluehair on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here today, Mike, and I'll be in touch with you soon. Have it.
Okay.
And
bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Now we return you to your host.
All right, welcome back to the Freedom of Joyce show on freedomslips.com at Revolution Radio. We just had Mike Bluehair Smith, who was a live streamer out at Ferguson, Missouri. And, there's a lot of wars happening globally. We've got what's happening in Israel and also, what's happening in Russia and Syria. And just, there's so much going on right now, but we're also having a war happening in our own home, on our own turf, and it's definitely evident that we're seeing a militarized police turning on our free speech and our right to protest against a young man being killed by the police force. So we live in turbulent times, and I want to put it out there. What Jeff or Lori, what are your thoughts on that, and what do you feel is a potential solution that we could have a more peace? We can bring more peace into our lives and into our world. Lori.
Well, I have to say, that's the most amazing. Terry has never failed to amaze me every time I'm on the show. To hear such a fantastic description of the what's up from him was absolutely amazing. Not only is he reporting to us, but educating us about our rights, because the only way that we can induce change is to know what the laws are and to recognize what is happening to our police force, which are merely the go-tos for the politicians who continue to allow this behavior, especially on such a high level of racism. Using our freedoms of speech, our projected equality, which we always thought was real, and showing us that people can be violated for standing up for their freedoms. And he's just amazing. I have to say, to hear real journalism, to hear a real report on what was happening on his level was just so amazing. I'm going to be reeling all day just thinking about it. And it's wonderful to hear these things, because we are heading in a time of chaos, of extreme violations of our freedoms. And if we do not know when we're being violated, that is part of the problem. And as Americans and people of the world, it's important to know that we must exercise our freedoms or lose them. And this is very inspiring, because people think that they can hold on to their furniture or their cars or their jobs and not be affected by these things. But everything that takes away from our liberties and our freedoms is going to affect everyone. And by standing up, we also, not to separate ourselves from the police, but we must be there to remind them that we are them and they are us, that they are serving the country, serving our Constitution, that they must stand by their oath and not by the violence and the waste of life that we have seen happening to us. And so it's because I'm a love child, I'm a person of peace, and I abhor this violence and this racism, that we are being reminded that we have not yet leveled the playing field of life, that we have not yet made equal agreements with ourselves, that we will honor each other. And these are the days. To me, we have no business going into Europe and defending oil refineries instead of creating, which I know they already know, the powers that be and the imaginative creators of inventions and ideas and solutions. We already know other fuels and other things that could happen, but instead we're being driven to defend oil, and it's really a sickening thing, and doing business with countries that don't even honor their own people. So, we must understand our laws, we must recognize what we are seeing, so that when we protest together, we can make these changes and remind our officials and our police and our military that they are not separate from us, that they represent us, and that they too must stand up for the people. And it's just an amazing time. But that report was absolutely brilliant.
Well, one of the things that I find interesting is that the mainstream media can definitely point and picture and make Cliven Bundy look like a racist in order to get their agenda, but then they're gonna when it comes to our own police force doing something racist, and then having the people who are protesting against what they feel is an unfair shooting, and really, whether a person is black or white or Chinese or whatever nationality they are, there's no reason to be shooting anybody for the police to do something like that and just take people out. We're seeing it more and more. Unfortunately, it is our minority people that are being targeted right now, it seems. And I see more and more videos going up where there's police brutality in that situation. I do want to get back to Jeff, because we only got a few more, 20 more minutes left of the show. pretty much, and we were kind of left a little bit in midstream on how you've been healing yourself with cannabis and COPD. I'm shifting gears here. Are you with us, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
I wanted to throw in there on what we were talking about.
Sure.
On a different level. I've seen actually reports of police, federal police, state police targeting medical marijuana, medical cannabis patients. I don't know if you've heard this story.
Oh, I have.
I don't
experienced it, Jeff. That's why that's how I became an activist and started getting into radio. Was that I experienced a SWAT-style raid in a doctor's office that was in a medical marijuana dispensary, and held at gunpoint by them and everything. So, this kind of oppression is going everywhere. But sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
The story that I'm referring to, there's a gentleman on Facebook that I'm friends with. He's in the cannabis community. His name's Tim Lipson, and he is a medical card-holding patient, I believe, in Arizona, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Arizona. And he was set up and busted by an undercover narcotics officer who was allowed to get a medical marijuana card to say that he was a medical marijuana patient. This Timothy Lipson, all he was doing was delivering what he thought was a patient their medicine. This guy had contacted him through the text on the phone, gave him a sad story, and he helped him out. And then it turned out, and they busted him and gave him, I don't know what all the charges are, but they took his car, his mom's car, I believe, his cell phone, all sorts of stuff. And he is in a slew of trouble there in Arizona right now because he was trying to help out another medical marijuana patient he thought was in need. And if you guys, listeners, would want to know more and contact him or maybe help him, he has a GoFundMe set up trying to raise some money for legal bills to get a qualified attorney, because right now all he has is public defender. So that's, to me, that's just crazy that the police would actually go out and generate a fake medical marijuana license and pose as another patient just to bust another patient. I mean, that's just insane. But I don't know what all the specific laws are for medical in Arizona by any means, but from what I see from the outside, it sure looks like an injustice on this guy's against this guy, for sure.
Yeah.
That's another corrupt governor, too. She is really a manipulative, one-sided terrorist herself.
And then you got to take care of Joe.
Oh, yeah, he's Mr. Pink Underpants.
Yeah. You can.
I'm missing out on the pink underpants thing. What's that all about, Lori?
What it is,
all prisoners wear pink.
Yeah, and keeps them intense, like camping tents, in horrible heat. Feeds them less and loves to humiliate them, and he thinks the pink underpants is key to his solution, which is just as freaky as the black and white stripes. He's on such a corrupt level and a partner in crime with people that think like the governor and him. It's a pathetic example on the immigration issue, on their justice issue, and I'll be so glad. But Arizona's kind of another elitist group, and but they really require a healing for such a beautiful state to be held by such corruptive politicians and officials.
I agree totally.
I am sometimes just in shock by the way our governors are and our politicians and the senators. I think we just need to get rid of. We need to just take them all. I mean, just get rid of all of them, impeach them or whatever it is, take them out of office and start all over again. For me, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. I think it all sucks right now in some ways. And I know that there. I mean, apparently, there's. I'm not saying again. I hate to say that call the kettle black and say, they're all bad. I'm sure that there are some that are good. I'm hoping, but right now I just don't think I really don't even think it's real anymore. I think it's a dog and pony show. That's my opinion. some people may feel differently. I feel that our government was set up well, that our Constitution's beautiful, that we have the potential to be a really great country and be an example in the world, and yet we're failing miserably, and again, we've lost it. I think. I don't think we've totally lost it. We have it as people, but what's running the country has.
The greed, this is in every dynasty that ever lived, greed is an infecting factor, and people who, our freedoms are always vulnerable by those who come in looking like they're going to do their job but being lobbied heavily and manipulated by others. And it's such a subtle thing because government can look so damn boring until it's finally corrupted itself so obviously that people can see it. Because like in The Art of War, the wonderful treasure of wartime, is that unless the enemy reveals its form, you can't see it. So now we're seeing the forms of the enemy and who we're actually fighting against in many ways. The Koch brothers are so, blatantly, their wealth is hoping to smother the visions of the people who understand who they are. Hillary Clinton continues to worship Monsanto. Nobody's going to want to let her either. I'm all for make Elizabeth Warren president and Bernie Sanders her vice president and rock and roll. Get student debt under control, bring justice back to a country who sorely needs it, so that those who smirk at the freedoms of others can get a little fanny smacking and slow these beliefs down, slow the military takeover that seems to be happening, our weather controls and all the other things that are coming to us, blocking us of our enjoying our lives and our liberties. We require a severe adjustment back on course in order for what this grand experiment of democracy, if it's going to survive, it's going to take each and every one of us examining what is happening and recognizing the unworthiness of these negative activities that have been going on that don't serve us, but only serve those who seem to be so adamant about controlling us as people. And, that's why I love Revolution Radio. Because we can speak it and learn it, and may there be 2 million listeners coming our way for people who will be able to see what we're speaking about and recognize it so they can be part of the change.
Jeff, we've only got about 15 minutes left for the show, and
finish up on
more time.
What I was saying. Anyway, where I left off, I was in the hospital. I was in a coma. I was very sick. About to die. My friends and family were called in. They prayed over me, all the good stuff. So I was in there for 28 days. Part of the side effects from the inhalers that I was on, which is crazy to give a lung patient and a COPD patient, but you become more susceptible to pneumonia. And my lungs were so bad that whenever they were ready to release me from the hospital, they say, hey, you cannot take the chance of getting pneumonia again. You might not make it. So they knocked me off a couple inhalers. That got me thinking. Even in my sick, at that time, very sick mind, at that time, I started thinking. I came home, started researching, found cannabis oil. I found Roland Doobie, my late caregiver.
Yeah, God bless Roland Doobie.
Yeah, I did too. And so he started sending me some samples of oil to try, and at first, it was just that. I was just doing oil. It wasn't any diet change or anything at all at that point. I was just on faith trying something different. And it started working. And as it started working, then I started changing my diet, knock out sugars, a lot like cancer, but not quite as strict on your diet. But I knock out sugars. I try to eat fresh fruits and vegetables all day long as much as I can. High protein fish, tuna, things like that. Some people go to the extreme of cutting out, all red meat, stuff like that. I haven't gone that far extreme, but I do eat less and less of that type of meat than I did before. Cut out soda. I went to lemon water and cucumber water, and from that time frame of doing those things, in the last year and a half, I went from a size 36 waist to now a size 29 waist. About 40, I weighed 189, As of last week, I weighed 139. I had high blood pressure. Now my blood pressure sets at around 120 over 80. Pretty much sometimes a little higher than that, sometimes a little lower, but it's pretty consistent around that range. So what's working for me and a lot of others so far with COPD has been cannabis oil, diet changes, and exercise. And if you do those three things and do them consistently, you can have healing and a success story like many of us. But it starts, like I said earlier, it starts with wanting that, because it sounds easy when I sit here and talk about it on the radio, but by far it is not easy at all. It's a daily battle and a daily mind frame that you have to put yourself into. For example, when I quit drinking soda, I used to be a big Mountain Dew drinker. I would drink easy 2-liter pops of Mountain Dew a day.
Marijuana Mountain Dew.
Yeah, slipped. And so, anyway, so when after I quit, my wife said, "You can have a pop." Well, it's not that easy. It's kind of like telling an alcoholic they can have a beer. For me, I was kind of addicted, I think, to caffeine and soda. So after I heard that, I had to stop, and I had to keep telling myself, because my brain would say, "Hey, it's okay to drink a soda. You can have just one." I had to train my brain to say, no, it's not okay. And it's not okay to do it even when nobody's around, because you want to live longer and you want a better quality of life. So you've got to take these little things to make the overall healing and life you want better. So that's one thing that I can say to a lot of people out there. You have to have a lot of willpower, strength, and most COPD patients are very strong people. And a COPD patient, another thing I'm going to throw in there on your diet, that you need to have be eating mushrooms and things that would build your immune system, because our immune systems are shot. So luckily, though, with all these things I've been doing, I haven't been ill since last, probably say May or, no, I must say June. Last June, probably. And I was shortly after being on the oil, I got a lung infection, but I cleared up from it real quick. And now I'm pretty healthy. I don't have much health issues at all. My bad day, and COPD patients will know this, my bad days are far, far, far in between anymore. And even on my bad days, I can still do more than what I ever could do before. A perfect example, I was feeling bad the other day, and I got up and I did 6 miles of walking before I knew it never happened. And after I did that, I felt better. So for COPD patients, get healthy, get active, and get back in life. Cannabis oil is one way to do it, but there's lots of other ways out there if you research alternative methods. Don't believe everything the doctors and pharmacists are telling you. Look up your medications, learn about your medications, learn about your conditions, and get help.
You know what? Thank you so much for being out there. And, we are getting towards the end of the show. I want to thank you for being here, and also for Lori co-hosting with me. And, Lori, have a great time, your rest of your time in Vegas.
Well, I'm loving my friends. And Jeff, I have to tell you, I was going for my cannabis card, and I had just had a big sushi lunch with lots of soy sauce. I was, acting like a crazy woman. And my blood pressure was at 189. Well, let me tell you, my son and I both said, to hell with that, and we started just focusing and walking every day, and went around a track 3 times around was a mile, and really working it. And in 1 week, my blood pressure went down below 151. So it shows you that everything you're saying is true. We've been programmed for all this felonious food, which is not food, but actually over-sugaring, over-chemically enticing our brains. And everything you said will help us for what my friend said, Lori, die well. Don't die sick, die well. And improve your life, your brain, your cognitive thinking, and be aware, because these are the days to live and to live the best life you can. And everything you said is absolutely life-changing. So I just want to thank you so much. It was your input is magnificent, and your cause, of course, is for all people.
Jeff,
thank you so much.
Can you let our listeners know, too, where, again, that they can find you and your group, and all pertinent information before we sign off here?
Sure. They can find my group on Facebook, Treating COPD with Cannabis. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Jeff Waters. If you can Google me if you want to find out more about my story. If you Google my name and COPD, or my name and cannabis oil, any of those combinations, you'll find tons of links. And my email is jeffwaters1972@gmail.com. And also, I have a GoFundMe page. If you have the resources available to help me out, I would appreciate it. It would help me to further my story and to get my story out there to as many people as I can to help get other people healthy as me.
Now, do you work? Are you employed at the moment? I mean, I don't know if you want to say that. Maybe I shouldn't ask that question. But I mean, are you able to work right now?
It's a sticky situation right now because I'm feeling much better. I'm living again in a small town. The jobs around here mostly are construction and hard labor jobs. I couldn't do an 8-hour hard labor job. I started at 4 hours. The other possibility for jobs for me would be like at a store somewhere where they drug test. That's my next problem. So because of my THC in my system, I can't take a drug test. So I'm limited there. I would love to find opportunities. If anybody has any ideas or any opportunities available for me, because I'm open and to listen to any opportunities out there.
That's a whole other subject matter, again, about the drug testing thing. And it's interesting that you're a patient, you're curing yourself, but now you can't get employment. That's just, shouldn't be happening. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I'm Terry Joyce. You can find me at freedomofjoyce.net with my blog sponsored by the Liberty Beacon Project. And I'm on Facebook, TERE Joyce. Freedom of Joyce, like Revolution Radio on Facebook too. Signing off. See you next week. Bye.